So welcome everyone. If you're watching this on YouTube and if you're on stream, well, yeah, we're back from an awkward 5 second silence. But here today and tonight we've got special guests: Calvin Tahan, former best in the world, and our main man, Alexander, another retired man. We've got two retired personas in here.
Alex isn't retired.
Base Law is retired, of course. Sorry, Law is retired. We're here with Alexander. So.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess we're just gonna be chilling here for like half an hour, 45 minutes or so, just talking about stuff and whatever. But yeah, how you guys doing? How's things with you, Calvin?
Oh man, I'm tired. Yeah, long week. Don't want to talk about it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad to be here. It's cool.
You did well at a recent event recently, didn't you?
Yeah. I actually topped my first ever premiere event. I topped YCS Toronto.
Oh god.
With Burning Abyss, and I'd actually never used the Burning Abyss cards before, but they were pretty strong. I don't know why more people aren't using them.
I know, right? It's crazy.
You actually do have a legit top though before, right? From a fake event. I guess you could call it. Was it 2010? Or does that count?
Okay,
or is that not actually
yeah.
like?
I mean, we should go over the timeline.
Okay.
So what's happening? And I'll bust right into it. So what's happening here is that over the last 5 years, I guess created and personified a character. I mean, with the same name myself, and that was that. I'm gonna go into this more later, but that's probably the only thing I did wrong. Like, Base Lolly took the thing and made it a name, and I didn't really have another name other than my own name, so. It's kind of hard to tell unless you like actually knew me when I was shit posting and when I was just being me. But I mean, pretty much towards like the general like days of fame, which I would say was like from when I became Player of the Year in like the end of 2014 to like now, several months ago. That being, it was pretty much like all like Calvin Tahan, best in the world, everything. But yeah. So what happened was that. I started the game in. I played Yu-Gi-Oh like as a kid, like since it came out. Like watched the TV show. Like had like I don't know. My first like card that I pulled was like Flower Wolf. So like I knew the game. But then I stopped playing like after elementary school, and then in like the middle of high school, I'm just at home playing RuneScape, doing my thing. And my friend from school comes to my door just out of nowhere, and I hadn't seen him in years. And he was like, "Hey Calvin, like I can tell you still live here. I was just in the neighborhood. Do you still have your cards?" And I was like, Jesus. So I got crushed by like his gadget deck or whatever, just like 2008. And I started going to locals, Anime Pavilion in Falls Church, worst place ever, but I went there for like over 1,000 times in my life. And yeah, I started going to events. First regional top was in 2010 with I think I played like Frog Monarchs. That was like Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, and then a couple months after that, the character of Best in the World, Calvin Dawn, was born, and that happened at YCS Charlotte. I lost to Billy Break in top 8, and I think that's what really triggered it. I remember, like, I mean, I was in an area, at least in the United States, where I feel like. I mean, you have this thing where like Cali feels like they're the best, and then like certain other like Florida all cheats, so it doesn't matter. But like where I live, it was like Washington D.C. area. Like at least back then, like I feel like Maryland, which is the state above mine, just like really close, was considered like the best area in the states, at least during the period of like Shonen Jumps from like 2007 to like 2010. Like every great player was a Marylander. And as a Virginian, we're a slate. I felt like I always had something to prove and to try harder. So I was always kind of playing with a chip on my shoulder. And then it kind of like just really triggered me when not only did I get 2-0'd by Billy, and I felt like it was really my moment to break free, like to break through. But he shit talked me, and it was like, and Billy Break was like at the time somebody everyone had respected, and he was like he hadn't won an event yet, but like everyone knew how great Billy was, and like he was on his way to definitely win. He won like 2 back-to-back that year, or the year after. So, but he made this board, and it was like Naturia Beast and what's the other one, Barkion and Gozen match versus like my Fish OTK deck. So I had like a Treeborn coming back, and I had like a Fishborn grid, but I couldn't make anything. Um, and so he attacks for game, or he attacks for like what would be game. I dropped Battle Fader. No, this is all feature. So I dropped Battle Fader, and Billy was like, and he literally says like verbatim, he's like, I don't know why you're still playing. You have no outs, and I was furious because Billy didn't know this because the standard fish OTK deck was like played like three lads. It was like Nicky Lakaya's build from he's like Canadian. It played like three lads and was like super grindy. It played like dupe brogs and like I didn't do any of that. So I played three Caius, and under Gozen match you can tribute Battle Fader for Caius. So I would have banished Barkion, attacked over Beast, and he would have had no cards in hand. It goes match on the field, and he wouldn't be able to play. And I played three of those, so I had outs. I just didn't draw them, and like. And the fact that Billy was like, this player everyone thought was so great, and like, and I realize I'm sounding like a little kid right now, but that's how I was, and like I was a little kid. I was 18, so like that's the mentality I had. It was just like how could he say that? Like I was so angry, and just like the feeling of not drawing the out and getting there and proving him wrong and having it go down in history, like haha, you have no outs, I win, LOL, was just kind of like, I don't know, it just was unacceptable to me. And I went home, I made a video. It's like super cringe, but I feel like it had to be.
Did you make a video? Really? Is it still out there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's on my YouTube. I have like a YouTube channel. I don't think I posted for like, I think the last YouTube video I posted was like 2014. But yeah, I had like a decent YouTube channel. Yeah, and it's really funny. You should go watch it. Calvin Tahan, top 8 Charlotte 2011. YCS, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. And then from there, I never again topped another Konami event for I guess 5 years now. But the entire duration of the Calvin character, he never topped another premier event for Konami. I've never topped the nationals, which is like really funny. I topped like a lot of regionals in that time, and like I was like a local terror. Like everyone knew how good. There's always like I feel like that there's like a group of players who are like top every regionals to go to, but just can't get like their break. And I feel like, Garen Williams is like a prime example up until the last year where like he finally got his top. Like he had maybe 30 regional tops, and like he's the most respected player in the area. Like it was uncontested that he's better than me, he's better than Tyree, he is better than everybody from like our state for a period of time. Like everyone just respected him, but he just couldn't top. And that's how it was for me. And ARGs came out, and I was able to go to tournaments more frequently, and they were a lot closer. And so just from playing a lot, I started to grow. The character started to grow. I feel like the open forum like medium that ARG provides players with like Jim being really like hands-on helped the character to grow a lot. During this time, Duelist Grounds was like really big, and I had like a lot of. I was voted 2014 Player of the Year on Duelist Grounds, which is for like a website as elitist as that. That I feel like that's the pinnacle of my career as the Calvin Don character, just to finally get to that level of recognition where, the entire community of best players considered me one of the best up-and-comers at the time. So I'm still pretty proud of that one, even though they hate me now.
Was this all because of your successes at the ARGs? You got 2014 Player of the Year?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, so I didn't have like I would sparingly go to events. I feel like from like 2011 after Charlotte, I went to like a lot like the rest of 2011 because I felt like I wanted to just top another event. Like I wanted to prove that Charlotte wasn't a one-hit thing, but I guess it was. And then I got a girlfriend and like a really serious relationship, and and I kind of got out of the game. And then I got a job after that and kind of got out of the game some more. And then I got another girlfriend, and she's like the most serious one I had there for like 2 years. And so I didn't really I still went to locals like when I could, and I still played. And if like, there were an event nearby, they're like, hey, there's like YCS, like whatever, like 3 hours away, like you want to go? I'd be like, yeah, sure. Like I'll sleeve up some cards. So this is great. So I think I've in my life, like counting the character and not the character, I wish I counted. Like that's my second regret. I wish I had like kept a spreadsheet somewhere, or like just like counted what events I've actually been to. But I've been to at least 100, and I have one top, right? I guess 2 now for Konami. But I can say with absolute certainty, like I know, like this is not an exaggeration. This, and for a lot of people, it is. Like a lot of people that say this, like there's that fallacy where you only remember like the times you lose, you don't remember all the times you win, because like they're that much sore. But like this is a real thing. I have bubbled more events, or more than half of the events I've been to. So I almost have 50 tops, but I have 0. Like I have gone 7-0 to 7-3, where you just need one more at least 8 times. And yeah, like twice at Toronto, twice in Columbus, twice like just more times than I can count. And so that was even when like I wasn't playing like sparingly, I'd just go to an event and that would just be the result. I'd be like, I would just expect like, oh, another day at 7-0. Like I wonder what's gonna happen this time. And so that would happen. And then towards the end of like, I don't know what it was. ARG DC, the first one, I guess the only one they've had. I don't know when that was, but it was like it was the Nationals where Mike Steinman came out with like the Curry Bandit deck. That point was like I missed that Nationals because I didn't play that format, so I didn't have my invite and like I didn't really care, so I just didn't go to the Nats. But the ARG 25K, like the month after, was like right when I started getting back into the game, because that's when like my girlfriend broke up with me and like I was like between jobs and I was just like at a bad point in my life, but I felt like it was a good point to pick them back up. And that's where the streak came in. I think like from August to January, I topped I think every event I went to, and that's what it was like 6 of them, and that's why I was voted Player of the Year. So like 2014 Player of the Year was accumulated from August onwards, like disregarding everyone else who played from January onwards. Like I did more than they did from August, and that was like the best year I had in the game. And character exploded, and pun intended, and yeah, and I mean I'm kind of gonna stop talking and let you segue into another question, but I feel like that's a pretty good history of like my career, and like everything else is like documented or like people will remember it.
Nice. So why do you think you did so well for that last portion of 2014?
Passion. I attribute a lot of it to doing that work. More or less like not the playtesting portion, but like the getting me back into the game period portion. I was able to stay up to date on cards, and I played a lot of DN. I was one of the first people to join DN in like 2011 when it came out. I found out about it like when it was in beta from like my best friend at the time knew like the developer of it, who I guess is not BLS, but like the other guy. I don't know people's names, but yeah, I was like one of the first like at least 500 users, and I had just been like playing it all the time. I just found it so fun. You can make like the most ridiculous decks, and it's just like rejuvenating my passion for the game. And I used to be like a pretty big fan. These days, and I don't say this ironically, or like in a shit posting manner or anything, but like I'm not a fan of anybody. Like I don't have a favorite player. And I feel like that's really rare because everyone like Frazier has a favorite player, like Billy has a favorite, like everyone's a favorite player, but I don't. But at the time, I definitely I know my big 3 were Simon He, Bo Tang, and Mike Steinman. And I was such a fan of them. And like anytime they came out with the deck, I thought it was the funniest thing ever. And I thought like Steinman was one of the best innovators like the game had ever seen. And I loved like Simon He's play style and like his. I think like he made like the Asian deck he made like in 2012 was like my favorite thing. So I even during times where I wouldn't be playing the game, it popped on my Facebook that one of them did well. I'd look into it and I kind of learn the format in my head and figure out like just enough to admire their deck at the time. So I was never like totally removed from the game, and so it was easy for me to jump back in. I'm mostly attributed to DN. I didn't know anybody. Like when I started playing again, all my like real friends had quit, so I had to like either remake all friends or just like like show up my old locals and be like, yo, who wants to go to this thing, like this ARG thing? Let's see what this is all about. But definitely like the presence of DN and just the accessibility of ARGs. And I thrive most. I feel in like, not to sound pretentious, but like like if I do okay, in elitist atmospheres. So like Duelist Grounds was like one of my favorite plays. And I feel like ARG at the time, you had everybody backing it up and being like, oh, these are like better than Konami events. Like at the time it was undisputed. And like only good players go here. And it was like, oh man, I had to do well. So like I really, really tried. And the chip on my shoulder thing came in again. And it just came naturally. and I attribute that, as stupid as it sounds, to it only being versus good players. I feel like I'm better than most good players. But the reason I don't have a lot of tops is because I'm awful at playing bad ones. Uh, I have a little parable from Goat Control that a lot of people will understand. One of my favorite plays in Goat, and this only works if you're playing against somebody better than you or as good as you. So I can never do it anymore unless I'm against, like, I guess, like Joe Girlando or somebody who's like, plays like only plays goats these days. But turn one set magician and face set pot of greed. No
Oh,
good
that was
players.
fun.
No good player is ever going to attack into a face down, and they're never going to blind MST a face down turn one. They're never going to knock a face down turn one because you're never going to set because you have to save knock for faith. So they're never going to do it. You can't risk attacking, like hitting a face down and sacrifice you armor, and then you just not having a field and it being Reaper and them flipping it, or them just like out established boarding you. You can't MST it because it could be scapegoat, and it usually should be. You can't overcommit into a T set that simple, unless you're a bad player. And a bad player summons Exciton and attacks and kills me, or summons Breaker, breaks, and like, okay, I get bot agreed back like when they attack, but like. So that play only works, and it's only rewarding versus good players, and it's like the best play you can do, but you can never do it in actual play because it never comes up because you're always against worse people than you. So that's why. So take that parable and extend it, and that's why I did so well at ARGs, because I could do stuff like that because I was always against people better than me. So you could always next level. You can next level them, whereas an idiot isn't capable of getting next level because they can't even fathom it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So-
Never actually thought about that. I've not played goats too much, but yeah, that's pretty cool.
I know. I don't play Go at all. I've watched you.
So yeah, where are you gonna go from here?
So I mean, okay, it's a weird format. I'm not happy with the list, but I still like the game, and I still have the passion to play. The passion to travel really is what's kept me going the whole time. So I definitely still intend to play, and I always did. I mean, this, like, I basically put on a WWE character. Like, it was scripted. Like, everything was planned. There's not one thing I think that I've done the last 2 years that wasn't calculated at least 6 months ahead of time. So I was always going to show up at Toronto. And I don't know. I'm just always going to play. I just don't want to play the character anymore. I mean, it was spawned by an 18-year-old kid who was just like, thought it would be funny and kind of always wanted to be a pro wrestler, and couldn't be, or did, I guess, I don't want to say couldn't, but just chose not to pursue it, and wanted to like find a way to take that into another game, and do something sort of unprecedented and something that's never been done before. And I will say, like, there's definitely a point where it kind of got out of hand, and I was committed to it, and I kind of had to stick with it. But I mean, I don't regret a second of it. But like, 5 years is such a long time. Like, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast today. So like, 5 years was just crazy. It's so much history, and to keep, more or less, not to say I didn't enjoy it, but like a facade for that long. I've lost a lot of friends. I've not that they stop, like, oh, like, if you're gonna play the character, I'm not gonna be friends with you. More in the sense that, like, I never became friends with people because I had to play the character, and that's fine with me, and like, I understand that was like something, it was a calculated risk, but it's at this point in my career, I'm a school teacher and like 24 years old. Like, it's not something I'm interested in doing any longer. And the people that are my friends, like that have always been really close to me, like, in the game, they they know who I really am, and like, not even like my best friends, but like people like that are just like, Garen, Tyree, like, Alex, like people like Mike, just Albanese. People know who I really am, and they're always gonna be cool with me. And then there are people who wouldn't talk to me or couldn't take me seriously because of the character, and now they're gonna, and people a lot of them I admire, and now I get to take them seriously again, and I get to be real with them. I get to be there's a lot of people don't understand how odd it is to post something and never be taken seriously until you're actually in that position. And I'm not saying I'll argue that it's more a good thing than a bad thing. It's actually like great. Like shit posting is so much fun, but I, I feel like I could never talk about politics on Facebook, and I could never like anything that actually mattered. I could never make a statement on it. I always had to say bend the knee, kiss the ring, or something, and like, and I realize now that like that I'm in a position where I've learned a lot. A lot of people look up to me.
Does that bother you?
And no, well, kind of. So the character Calvin Tahan was always nice to his fans, and you know would always do anything to his fans. And I was literally true to that, which is kind of ironic. He's kind of like a douchebag. I mean, pretty much, not even kind of. He's just an asshole. But to his fans, he wasn't. He was, you know, he's this conceited person. Egomaniacal, but he would talk to his fans always. Whenever somebody went up to me at an event, I would always talk to them every single time. Like, and you can call me out on this. If you're listening and you're one of those fans, you can screenshot proof. There won't be. I respond to every single message I've ever gotten thoroughly, not just like thanks, man. But if they ever ask me for deck advice, I send paragraphs. And that's like on the character's end. You know, he'd always have to. He'd always do that, and he'd always be like, "Oh, I could never like, I would never lie to my fans," which is he never did. Throughout the whole farewell tour, he always did. He was always going to leave, and there were never going to be any more dates added. Like I never lied, but now I can just be me, and me is at least half as humble, or no, twice as humble rather. Like I'm not saying I'm opposed to attention or a pedestal. I feel like I know a lot of things, and I feel like I'm a good person, and I feel like I ought to use said pedestal to share some good. But at the same time, I also feel like I have the right as just a human being to not do that if I feel like it, and to not respond to people as and it's not, and I don't feel like it's BM, and I don't feel like it's rude. I just feel like it's just standard, and I can do that now. And so it's good. I literally just get to be me, like how I am in real life. I get to be, or rather, I'll say I will get to be. It may be like a month, because I know there's like a rippling effect. Where the character is still kind of dying out, and I still kind of have to say things like I'm retired. Whenever somebody brings up bend the knee or like any catchphrase, like my 10 billions, I always have to respond with I'm retired. But I imagine that's going to stop in about a month's time. And then from that point out, it'll be no canned responses at all, and it'll just be me being me. So
one question
yeah,
I have is like, what was the benefit of doing it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm
right.
like most players who like shit post or like, you know, are just people like say Hoban or Jeff Jones. You know, like these guys kind of like they shit post for fun, or they like just make bold statements.
Right.
But that's just part of who they are, and like they let their credentials sort of speak for themselves. Like, what is the benefit of like creating a persona? Like, there's very little reward in this game as it is.
Right.
So,
so it was almost like an experiment. I mean, it's really fun, but it was, you know, I went to it a little earlier, but I've always watched pro wrestling. I've always been fond of it, and I just always wanted to, I mean, I guess at the time, it was created as sort of like an escape. Not that I had low self-esteem or anything or any issues like that. And if I did, I wouldn't be denying them. I wouldn't be ashamed of it. I've just always been like a fairly confident individual. I mean, I've gone through my share of shit. I literally, like, the worst thing that's ever happened to me was like my first girlfriend broke up with me, and I like dropped out of school and like just locked myself in the room for 2 weeks and almost killed myself. Like, that actually happened. But like, obviously I got out of it, and I am where I am now. But like, that had nothing to do with the character. I just felt like it had never been done before, and I wondered why, because it was so easy. And it was easy, and not like, I'm not like trying to imply that like it's people are like, so anytime I say, I always like knew ways to like trigger people or to like get them talking, like in good and bad. And like at first he was just like this cocky guy who was still kind of likable. And I sort of like delved deeper, and I tried to like actively make myself more unlikable. And then when I started getting my tops, that's where it really capped off, because like people had to respect me. Like they didn't have a choice, because I was the best. I was the best in the world. Like I was voted it, so you can't even deny it. And that's where it just it was just ridiculous. And then my friend Colin Reardon, I think in like early 2015, I'll say middle 2015, was like, who was in on it. I'd say my closest friends were always in it, especially towards the end. I'll get into this later, but Ryan Levine, I don't know if you know who that is, but he he was in on every single step of the farewell tour. Like we theoried things together, like how does this post look, and Ryan was the only person in the world who knew I was going to Toronto. Like I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell anyone else at my locals. Like my best friends didn't know. They were like, hey, like are we still getting drinks today? I was like, oh sorry, LOL, I'm in Toronto. And because that had to be top secret. But Colin knew like a little bit, and he watched pro wrestling too, and so. In wrestling, you have good guys and bad guys. And obviously I was playing a bad guy. And he was like, hey, Calvin, he's like, why don't you try going face, which is a good guy. He's like, I'll give you, like he said sarcastically, he's like, I'll give you $100 if you can go face. And I was like, I don't think I can take that bet, because I feel like after all these years of just like shit posting, it'd be really hard to pull off. So I'm not going to take the bet, but I'm going to do it just to see if it could happen. And so I took a post. I think like that month, Chris LeBlanc had made like a pretty, what's the word, notorious post about like him coming out, and he was like, it was just like this really long like wall of text, like bad grammar, like Chris LeBlanc style. I love Chris to death, but like like he's a Yu-Gi-Oh player, he's not an English major, so like grammar doesn't matter. But it was just him, and at the end of the post, he was like, I just want to be real, like I've always wanted to come say this, and at the end it was just like, I'm gay. And so I took that, and this like like a month after it had flown over and people were done making memes of it, I took it, copied it verbatim, and I changed tenses around, fixed up the grammar a little bit to make it sound more like me, and at the end I said, I'm not the best in the world. The response I got to that was almost surprisingly positive, and like everybody came out of like all the holes they'd been hiding, and like everyone who was like internet warrioring me and like not my friend, they're like, dude, this is a really good step for you. And they're like, I got like PMs off the chart, they're like, damn man, you're actually decent, and like I always knew you had it in you, and I knew it was all a show. And like there was like maybe like a week or like almost 2 week period where I was like in the middle of 2015 where people fucking loved me, because I guess like they were just glad to like, it was like a confirmation bias type of thing. Like they were glad to know that it wasn't like a real thing. And then so I was like, LOL, like see Colin, like I turned face, and it was that easy. And it was easy. And it's not that, I'm not saying people are sheep. And like I can predict their every move, but people are predictable. And I mean, like they are just like at a core, and that's why laws work. Like that's, if you're not predictable, you're labeled insane. And like I guess you have to be kind of insane to be like where I'm standing. But like it was great. And I feel like, so you're asking what was rewarding about that. I highlight that moment because that was one of the most rewarding moments of the character, of just like realizing the power at my fingertips, where like I can make a community real, and truly believe something that just wasn't true. I felt like Hillary, and it was just, gosh, it was just, I mean, there's not even a better word. Like I got a power trip, but it was terrifying. I mean, and I immediately, like, 2 weeks later, I went back to being heel, shit posting, and like the backlash from that was crazy. And like ever since, like, no one respected me, and it was like the best thing ever. Because, man, like, you don't know like what it's like to live until nobody respects you. You can't do anything wrong.
I guess
like,
so. That's one way to put
standards. Yeah, and that's appealing. I'd argue for anybody in life that's appealing. But I feel like the length of time that's appealing is exponentially like downward when compared to your age. So like at 18, that's great, but at 24, that's like, man, like, yeah, this is kind of shitty. like a little too self-aware for that. So yeah, I started the farewell tour and put a list of events out. Was like, that's it. Obviously, it had to be a show. Obviously, there had to be some cloudiness and inconspicuousness, I guess, about what it meant. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way it played out, and I'm really glad that I did a tour because it helped me a lot. Like, it's very therapeutic, but I'm also glad that like I gave people a chance to say goodbye to the character, even though at the time they thought they were saying goodbye to the person, and that's the second most rewarding part about it, was that it really was like pro wrestling in the sense like look at somebody like CM Punk. Like, Punk played a character, but he changed so many people's lives, like mine included. Like, I was straight edge for so much of my life just from watching Punk on TV. Like, until I was 22, I just like hadn't smoked a cigarette or like drank any alcohol or anything. And I feel like the early part of my life was almost saved because of that. And that's all from a character. And when Punk left, like, you know, the person left, but the character left too. And to the audience, there wasn't a difference, you know? So I played the tour like the person was going away, because like, why, you know, like for them it's the same anyway. And so where am I going with this? Tour happens. Oh, another thing was I said I planned this all out, and I did. And I had like a story written, and you know, you can't really plan your tournament play out, like how it's gonna go. But the Magnus deck I did know about for quite some time, and you know, I can't say I knew I would win, but I knew it wouldn't be close, like one way or the other. Like, either I was really gonna win or I was really gonna lose, and I knew that Richmond would be like an event worth noting, for that reason. And so, when I say I won by accident and I had to extend the tour, um, none of that is untrue, even remotely. I couldn't leave on a win. I just couldn't, because Calvin Tahan as a character is not supposed to have a happy ending. He's just not. Like, he's never supposed to get what he wants. He's supposed to be the false god. Like, he's not the best in the world. He only thinks he is. And when I won an event, I was for the, you know, that week until the next event, like the reigning champion of the world, and that was an unacceptable way to leave for me. So I had to extend the tour, and I had to go out. You know, not necessarily on a loss, because I did top, I think, the majority of the events that I went to on the last half of that tour, but just not on top. He had to get a sad ending. I had to bubble the last event. Like, it was just the way he was supposed to go out. And so I'm really happy with that sort of bittersweet ending that he got. And I'm really happy that he sort of faded away. And people towards the last half of it, they just got tired of it. And they were like, please don't extend this. Like, oh, this is all like stupid anyway. Like, I'm glad that's the response, because I wouldn't have had it any other way. And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the wrap on that. But so what's fulfilling about it? Just all the turns, just like everything. You can, it's like asking a theater performer or an actor, like, or a musician or any artist, like, what's fulfilling about their work. You get to put on a mask and play a character, and it doesn't have to be you, and it can be you, and they'll never know the difference either way.
Wow, that's really something.
I mean, like, I guess that's one. If that's how you want to, like, you know, go about it. I mean, if, you know, it could be for, like, social issues or whatever. But, like, you know, I think for, like, a majority of people, it's like they just want to, you know, network with, make friends and stuff. I feel like, you know, constantly having to portray a character for 5 years, you know, is a bit of a stretch. You know, I mean, like, it would have been funny if it was, like, you know, for like a couple of events, or if it grew to such an extent. But for 5 years, it just seems like it would have hindered your, you know, ability to make friends or whatever.
See, when you say like, oh, like I had like people at my fingertips and stuff like that, like, I'm not even being funny when I ask this, but do you not think that's like a bit sociopathic to an extent?
Oh, absolutely is. I mean, yeah, it absolutely is. But
and that you were just having fun with it, I guess. I mean,
I can't really defend that. Yeah, there's not really, like,
okay.
there's nothing I can say. But there are a lot of parallels between the character and the person, but not not nearly as many as people could guess, and not nearly in the same places that people would guess.
Okay.
But and I'm willing to talk about them. Like if I were to compare myself to like an actual person, I'd say like politically I'm like very and not just like with my stances, but like how I view them, or like how I think about them and rationalize them, and support them. I compare myself to Garen Williams almost like verbatim, minus the military background. I just like the things he believes in, like the way he talks about them, or rather the way he thinks about them, just at a core, are exactly how I am as a person. But I'm definitely more liberal than him. But I, that's just, and politics is only one part of what a person is. But when you start comparing, like, oh, I'm like this, like politically, and like I'm like Albanese, like romantically, and like whatever. Like I can't just like fill in a bubble and be like, yeah, that's what the real Calvin is. Like you're just gonna have to see it for yourself. But like that's the whole point of retiring, is that people will get to, and if they like me, great, and if they don't, great. Like that's what life is. So okay.
All right, that's interesting. So
yeah, I think I like I said earlier, I don't really crave the pedestal, and it was almost a burden, and it almost still is, because I still have it. Like I can still join like PBG tomorrow, and the internet would explode. And for a lot of people, that's great. And I mean, I'm not saying it's not great, because like I craved it for most of my life. Like I craved the spotlight. So like, what am I going to do? Throw it away? Like, or deny it? No, like I've earned it and I enjoy it, but I definitely need a break. And it's not like I was, I'm making it sound like I'm a victim. Like I'm really bad at, like, I should have taken like notes or something and like written them down, because it's not coming across well. It's not like I'm regretting anything. It's just that like I want a higher ceiling. That's exactly what I want. I just want a higher ceiling, and the character didn't have a high ceiling.
right. That's kind of confusing. I don't know what you mean by ceiling of a character. Like,
so anytime anything happened, I had to respond with like 1 of 10 catchphrases. And I always had to be an arrogant dick, and I always had to be like the best in the world, and I always had to shitpost. I always had to like do X and react X way. And every time I topped, I could never celebrate with my friends. I always had to stand on a table and shout "best in the world" as they announced my name, and like it was just. And I always had to put out videos and make Duelist Grounds profiles and posts, and just like I always had to do all these things, and like I always had to do them. And now I don't always have to do them. I still can do them, but I don't always have to. And in that, I can use that to do other things that like actual human beings do. So like reasonable players, like anybody else you can name who's not like, I guess, Odin.
well, that's cool. So I guess to wrap up now, we're gonna do some quickfire Q&A, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brad and Beaky, if you guys have anything you want to ask real quick, otherwise I'll go to the chat now and see what they're asking. Let's see.
Now I'm good for now.
So at 18, how did you start getting into competitive decks? So what format would that have been? That would have been that's 6 years ago. So
that was it was like 6 Samurai and X Saber, and I guess like I mean I played Fish OTK. That's like how old I was. There was like Frog Monarchs. There was man, I don't know. I'm really bad at remembering formats. So 2011 was like the first half of that was that, and then Tour Guide came out, but XYZs didn't exist, so it would just summon Sangan and you would pass. And so that was like the pseudo plant deck. And at the same time, Tengu came out, so they were like plants. But I played long before that. Like I played since 2009. So my first deck I remember playing, and I have a really bad memory. But rather, my first competitive deck I remember playing was Ryan Spicer. I like net decked him card for card for my first ever event. It was called Shonen Jump back then. They didn't have YCS. It was Shonen Jump Columbus. Card for card, I took his like he had like a Dimensional Alchemist Chaos deck. It played like Dialk and like Chaos Sorcerer, and like I don't remember what else it played because it was so long ago. But played those cards, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I played it, and I started 7-0, and then I lost 3. And that was my first ever event. So that was interesting. I think I'm wrong. I think there were only 9 rounds. I think I started 6-0 and lost 3. But I started XO needing 1 more and lost 3. But nonetheless, I was, that's my first experience with the competitive decks. So how did I pick up decks? I read metagame a lot, which was like kind of dying towards the time I was coming, but it was still like pretty big. Which was also like, shut up, Siri. I don't want. Yeah, I made my Siri British. I don't know why. All right, so yeah, metagame. It was interesting because if I can backtrack for a little bit, I will say the two real moments I've had out of character during the existence of my character, were the AMA I did on Reddit after the win. All of that was me, the person. Every single one was just genuine me, just because I have a soft spot for Reddit, and I feel I love Reddit. Like, Reddit changed my life for the better. And during that AMA, which you can look up, right after my first and only premiere event win, there's that, and then the interview I did for Konami with Jason Grabermeyer was all me as well, no character, and that's homage to him on metagame, just being humbled by having that same person who I pretty much idolized as a kid. Like, I loved his writing style, I loved reading his articles, just being interviewed by him and coming full circle with that was great. So but yeah, that metagame was like always where I went. Later on I went to Duelist Grounds. Was never like a Pojo person or never like a DN forum person, but eventually I developed a circle, and we theory decks where I went for competitive decks. So a lot of my tops weren't competitive decks. They were literally decks that I created on the spot. I think I have, including Toronto. Like, I showed up to Toronto with I think I had like a 47 card deck that I had put together. It was playing like 2DD Crow in the main and Compulse in the main, and then like the rest of the cards that I still played. And I got to the hotel, and Mike Albanese and Azad were just like, "Hey, why don't you cut these cards? And then maybe play less and like play 40 or like 42 or something. Like, you still play 3 Desires, but like," I was like, "Nah, man. Like I'm pretty sure I'm on the right track here, but I will cut those 3 cards." So I just cut those 3 cards and then play the event as it was. And I think that's the most editing my decks have gone through. Like 3 cards being taken away, probably ever. The Curry Bandit decks I topped with 3 of them. They all were just like me showing up to a table, like sleeving cards I wanted to play, counting the decks, being like 48, okay, nodding my head, writing down 48 as the number, circling it, and just like submitting the deck. And so I wouldn't say I'm a great deck builder, but I do have good theory. And I think that carried me. I think if I were a little more cookie cutter, I could have gone a lot further with some of my decks. But I'm just saying, don't confuse the decks I've done well with meta decks, because they most certainly weren't. They were awful. But I did get my meta decks, growing up from metagame and Duelist Grounds. Yeah.
Nice, awesome. So next question. That's a really good one here. Where was I actually? Oh yeah, if you could go back and change anything over the past 5 years or whatever, what would you have done differently? Okay,
so automatically I already know the answer, and I went over it briefly, but I would have given the character a name other than my own name. It's hard to say that because it's also almost like it might have been too soon. Like, I don't know when Base Lolly was created, because I met Alex pretty late on. He's like one of my best friends right now, but pretty early on, and he was already Base Lolly when I met him. I don't know when that happened, but I met him in 2013, and I think even like a 3-year difference, like 2010 through 2013, like a lot changes on the internet. And I don't want to take any credit for what he did, because I don't even think he knew I existed when he came up with Base Lolly. I think it was just like 2 identical thoughts on just a different timeline. And him being later didn't make it any less original. But I think because it was later, he was able to have a name. And I don't think necessarily that like it would have necessarily taken off in 2010 or in 11 had I like faced it with a name other than my own. So I don't really know. So it's like I would like to have given it a name, but I don't know if it would have taken off with the same like genuine feel to it and believability, if that makes sense.
All right, fair enough. Do you have a name in mind that you would have used?
No, not at all. Definitely not.
All right. Let's see.
It would have been JOS.
I don't think anything beats Base Lolly, like, just at all. So.
Oh, relax. Oh, not like this.
Yeah.
So, what's the most
Yeah.
fun deck you've topped or won with?
Ooh, oh man.
It has to be like Super Quantal or Fish
I
OTK.
will say that no, that was a fun deck. That was not. You had to be there. Like you can't go back in time and play it because like you just had to be at that event. But that was not an easy win. Like that, like Ryan played the same deck card for card and bubbled. It was like I had to outplay so many people just from like you never actually opened Magnus. It was just funny. I did it in the top 4 feature and the final feature. I opened it every game. It made people seem like I opened it every game, but like I never ever opened it. I would always make like you had to decide between making like red layer or like you didn't know what deck you were playing against, so you were like, okay, was like the red guy good, where you could pop a random monster, or was like the blue guy good? Because like popping like scales was really good, and like field spells were really good, and like you sometimes you couldn't make both, so you had to like literally just make the read, like which one is going to get me through turn 1. And your field spell can use the ones in graveyard. So like you make one knowing that it's gonna die, but you're trying to buy yourself another turn or like 2 other turns until you can like top that cat or like soul charge or something so you can play. And so that was a really fun deck because you had to make those calls. And I think Ryan did a little worse job of that than I did. And that's the only reason he didn't top. So that was a fun deck. So I don't want to disregard that. I don't know that the top, like my favorite off the top of the list of that I've topped with, but I can tell you without any doubt in my mind at all, the favorite deck I played, I didn't top with it, but and I know this because my favorite match of Yu-Gi-Oh happened at the event that I first started, quote unquote, getting back into the game with, which was the ARG 25K in 2013, where I net deck Mike Steinman's hat deck from the Nationals. I literally played it card for card. I played Fraser Smith in round 7, and I think we were both X1. So it was like winner would pretty much guarantee top. And he was playing card for card the same deck too, so it was like a card for card mirror match, and that is the single most fun game of Yu-Gi-Oh I've ever played in my life, and I lost. But it was that moment, I think, that like I should have mentioned this earlier because this is so like fundamental to everything that happened. But like that moment in 2013 made me want to like get off my feet and like get back into the game and be like really be good, because it was the first time I had ever played at a level where like I was genuinely like not only against somebody just like I could tell was better than me, but somebody but I still had like it was still a real match, and we were still like doing insane things. Like I wish I could recall the match like verbatim, but like I can only remember like small details. But like the timings that went into like the call to Hanids and like the sanctums, like timing was everything. And like I think we both played the match absolutely perfectly until the last step. Like it was not a solved match. Like anybody could win. But I ended up making the last mistake, and I lost because of it. And that was humbling, and it was eye opening. And it was like, this is what Yu-Gi-Oh should be like. And I was like, every game of Yu-Gi-Oh I ever play should be like this. And I was like, and I was like, if this is what ARGs are like, I want to go to every single one. And I did, and that was it. So that was great. Fraser Smith.
Awesome. Yeah, I think most of the questions are kind of trolly, but I mean that's about it. If you want to mention anything else,
It's all good. I'll answer them. Okay, let me see. What do we got? Virgin or nah? Calvin's a virgin. What else?
Nah.
What deck are you going to play this format?
Tomorrow I have a Philly Regionals. I'm playing BA. I don't know what kind of BA I'm playing. The deck in my backpack is still the Toronto deck I played from last format. I haven't touched a Yu-Gi-Oh card since, so I don't know. But yeah, I know it's going to be BA in some capacity.
I actually wanted to ask you about Toronto. Like, were you like shocked when you like topped that event? Like,
so.
Because like you know it was the start of your your new thing, and
right.
like first day back you top a YCS.
So let me go. So Toronto and I have some history. So that was my 3rd time in Toronto. I went in 2012 and I went last year in 2015. So in 2012 I went with Dark Worlds, and it was like not during the time where Dark World were meta, but it was like this insane Dark World turbo deck, and like it played like Trade In and like Dark Arm Dragon and BOS and Effect Veiler and Fabled Raven, and it was just insane. And it's the deck I had dominated regionals with. I won 3 back-to-back regionals week after week after week in my area, where I I beat Gary Williams and Tyree round 7 and 9 respectively on each single one to get in. And it was like one of the most validating moments of my Yu-Gi-Oh career. This was 2012, back before I was still anybody, but back when so that was like the most success I'd ever had with a deck. And I was like, this deck's so good. And you'll know if you look it up because some kid in Europe topped with it, like that same format, like a build very similar. He played like 3 Dark Creator, which I didn't play, but like it's that deck. So I went to Toronto with that deck, and I started 7-0, and I lost 3. And that was one of the most devastating losses I'd ever had. So I was like, man, screw Toronto, and I was like, I never want to go back, and so I didn't until 2015, Necros format. I went back and I theoried this in like looking back it was awful, but I was like, it was deep enough in the Necros format where like it had come down to purely innovation, like it was quote unquote solved, and like it was post Genlock and everything. It was just like like Necros, like everything that was broken was banned, but it was like Necros as we last remember it. It was that format, and I was like, why don't we? I was like, man, like we have too many normal summons, and I was like, I feel like we almost have enough. Like I was like, why don't we cut Manju or Senju? I was like, why don't we just cut it? And Ryan was like, no. Ryan was like Senju's like your engine, like you needed to play. I was like, not really. Like you'd always kind of play, and like you always have like you still have Manju. I was like, I'm gonna play like your same deck, like all 40 cards of the same, except I'm gonna take out 3 Senju and I'm gonna put in 3 Denko Sekka. And he was like, you're an idiot. And I did that, and I went 7-0, and then I lost 3. And then so Toronto had just like was awful for me, and I was like, I'm never going back to Toronto. And this year rolls around, and I was like, oh man, Toronto's gonna be my perfect return event for 2 reasons.
Can I just go back to your deck choice there and note that you complained about too many normal summons, so your solution was to put in 3 Denko.
Well, no, my too many like redundant normal summon. Like you'd open hands of like Senju and like Manju, and it was like I felt like they weren't necessary, and I felt like I was always going to open like a Breel or like a Rhoda anyway, and like I was always going to be able to play, and I wanted to blow people out. And this is like before Twin Twister, obviously. So like you had MST, and I was just tired of people like just having like responses, like Mind Crush was main back then, and like Shared Ride was main. So I was just like, and people would play correctly in the sense that like like they would let themselves not get Trishula because they would flip Shared Ride, then you wouldn't have any target for Trishula. And so I was like, why don't we just kill all these people and like just like trap them under Denko and then kill them anyway because your hand's still playable. And it worked for 7 rounds, and it didn't work for the last 3. But because like I bricked every round or just was bad. But that was the theory behind it. It's laughable because I was definitely wrong. like Senju's actually insane, but yeah, I'm bringing it up because it's funny. But anyway, so going back to Toronto a 3rd time, I was like, well, the last 2 times I went to Toronto, I started 7-0 and I lost 3. So I guess the worst thing I could expect is that happening. Like with any luck, hopefully I just like lose 3 immediately, and I don't have to play anymore, and I don't have to like get my hopes up. And another thing about it being good was since I'm not telling anybody, and the majority of people going are from out of country, nobody's gonna have cell phone service, and so. This was the case for like I was there for several hours, and like nobody knew I was there because nobody could talk about it. So like everyone who was there was just on like insurmountable amount of tilt. Like you had no idea how many people just looked at me and they were like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And like they couldn't post about it because like you don't have service. And so it was like a genius play. And it was just so funny. And so I felt like if I lost, and I would just go home like nothing ever happened. I wouldn't make a post about it. Like I wouldn't have said I was there. Like in my mind, it was just like, okay, like if you were like you had to be in the room where it happened, or like it didn't happen.
I mean, if you didn't top that event, you would have had to have said something, surely.
No, I wouldn't have said. I just would have pretended. I literally just would have pretended I didn't go.
But like all anyone would have to do would be to just look up the standing, surely. And see
yeah, of course. But then I would have responded with "I'm retired."
Would you have just said like, "Oh, that's probably someone else," like some generic name?
I don't know. I mean, probably. I would have brushed it off or said something, or like. I think my excuse at the time to people there, which was actually pretty valid, was that I was on vacation. I taught summer school this summer, and then Toronto was the week between where summer school ended and regular school began. So I genuinely didn't have anything to do anyway. Like I was home all week and the week after that, just literally straight home. Like I was either going to be sitting at home playing League or sitting at a table playing Yu-Gi-Oh. So like that's how I justified it for myself almost. yeah, so did I know I was going to top Toronto? Absolutely. Like, I definitely didn't think so. Um, I yeah. At the same time, I was really confident in my deck. I felt like my deck was really good. I felt like I would have. I still kind of wish I made DD Crow, but I mean, I topped, so I guess not doing so was good. But
What was your record? Like day one.
oh, so I lost really early, and I was really happy about that. I was like, yes, I can't go 7-0 this time. I think I lost round 4. Yeah. So I lost round 4 to Blair, Blair Hunter, with his Cosmo deck.
What was his
And then I
reaction
was
to like sitting across from you?
at that point, Blair's a really fun guy. So Blair's one of the most positive people I know. So Blair was like actually all for it, and like not like in a coverage type of way where he wanted to like cover it for the card guy's sake, but just he was genuinely happy to see me. He was one of the people who was like, I'm glad you didn't like actually quit, because like the community needs you as a person, like not you as a meme, but like you're one of the more real people I know, like when you're being real. And like that was like kind of like, not to put words in his mouth, but like a lot of people's reactions were like that, which was actually, I was meaning to bring it up. Like on the internet, it was a shit fest when everyone found out about it. But in person, everybody reacted so positively. Like even people that hated me were just like, I'm glad you're not actually gone, man. And then I explained to them in person, and that's how word got out, because I never made a post about it. I made it a point to never make a post about it because I didn't want to do that anymore. Like through retiring, I didn't want to have to make posts. So that was one of the big things. So I told as many people as I could, because I was never going to go home and make a post about like, here's what happened in Toronto. I made like a small one as a comment on the thread, like maybe a week after it happened, just to clear things up, but never an actual post. But I told people, I was like, yeah, so I retired the character. And I remember most vividly Chris LeBlanc's response, and he hated me. Like he hated the Calvin Tahan character, but he kind of liked me as a person. But like he hated the character too much to interact with me. So like when I told him that, he started dying, and he was just like laughing so hard. He was like that's great. He was like, not only is that the funniest thing I've ever heard, but that's actually really really cool. Like I actually respect that. I'm actually and like just getting that respect, like that response from him was like, this was like, it was totally unpredictable. Like I can say I predicted like 90% of what I did, but I did not react. I did not anticipate any of that. Like everyone just being so positive, and like I think that's the best I've ever seen the Yu-Gi-Oh community to be. Just like actual friends of mine, just like being happy. Like not happy that I was there, but just happy for me that like, you know, I made a decision, and like it wasn't a stupid one, and it wasn't a meme, and like it was just like actually logical. Yeah. So I don't know. Toronto was good, but did I expect to top? No.
That's cool. Oh, it's an interesting question.
Calvin. I was forced to make a status about.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I'm really happy you did that too, man. Like, I'm glad it sparked something.
Did Calvin inspire you? Yeah, is that how it went down?
Well, that's part of it. There was a big part that I mentioned briefly in the Facebook post, but I never mentioned in actuality, and it is something not personal, but it's something dangerous. And but I'm not afraid anymore. And I'm willing to come out about it right now and explain why the base lolly has in fact died. And you know, it's a very, very intense story, and it's a little graphic. So for the younger audiences, maybe it shouldn't. You know, maybe you just shouldn't listen.
Are you gonna go into it now? Because like I was actually planning on doing a series of like different people. So I mean, if you want to have like your own segment someday, we could do that. Or if you just want to like do like something short now, like I don't mind.
I got shot.
What?
I got shot. I got shot twice.
Like with a gun?
Like at the doctors?
No, I got shot with a gun.
Jesus.
Wow.
What? Wait,
No,
why
that's
do you
a
tell
lie.
me?
No, that's a lie.
Fucking hell.
What a dick.
Yeah. So no. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing like that.
I was trying to go through my head. I was like, why am I getting shot? Like, make you retire like a character you play in a card game. I was like, what could have possibly happened? Like, what? I was like trying to I went through like all stages of grief in like that second. I was like bargaining. I was like trying to like reach for something. I was like, what could possibly happen in like the Cali Yu-Gi-Oh scene that like is this real?
Yeah.
Wow.
Suarez, seriously, but no, that's a lie.
All right.
Not like this.
Well, that does it for our YouTube section. We're gonna go back to the stream now, but for those of you who joined late or missed it, you can watch the full story of Calvin Tahan, the myth, the legend, the historical study that we've done for this past hour. So check that out on TheCardGuyz if you've tuned in late or whatever. That will be up probably in a few hours. And yeah, so thanks for joining us, and we're just gonna head back to the stream now. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and of course thanks to Calvin for joining us on this.
Thank you guys. Like, not only you, but everyone. Thank you.